Hey, we are live for day 7 of the Family Business Life 9-day transformation challenge. Oh my goodness, this has been fantastic. We have had some awesome guests, we've had some awesome content. We have, man, just it's just been good. There's certainly been challenge for transformation. Has there been transformation? I can say for Leo, there has. I don't know about you, but what I can say is I believe you have been put in the position and put on the trajectory to achieve transformation, and especially in regards to the pursuit of family business life mastery. Before we go, I want to make sure you know we are live on YouTube, we are live on LinkedIn. We're also live on StreamYard for those who have that link, but you can catch it on demand. And if you are on demand, be sure to go back and get into some of that other goodness that we've had. We've had some great mastermind experience conversations with some powerful coaches, speakers, authors, and today is no exception. We also want to give regard to, oh my goodness, we got my folks. I was just about to mention these folks. Awareness Elevation is in the house. That's particularly James Powell. He likes to use that function there. Yeah, James Powell and Larry Rawlinson. These folks are partnering behind the scenes and also have contributed on the front side, being part of a number of different aspects of this experience. And so thank you, Awareness Elevation, for partnering with Team 3L in this 9-day transformation challenge, but more than anything, partnering in making a difference in the lives of business owners, CEOs, executives, and the very construct of eliminating family life crashing and burning while business life is thriving and vibing, and putting them on the trajectory to achieve the high performance reality of, watch this now, family business life mastery. So listen, we have had an awesome time. I mean, when you talk about our mastermind experiences, we've had a number of different elements contributed in our conversations with regard to family life, business life. Even in the lunch and learn experiences, we've really moved through the problems and the solutions to the cause of the problem. And from day 7 on to day 9, we'll be dealing with the keys that help you to unlock the pursuit and the access of achieving family business life mastery. But the conversations we have been so varied, so general, yet so specific. We've had a couple on here that's gone into a number of things and really showed us this picture of family business life mastery. We even had a guy on here who was going through a divorce at the time that we were dealing with the question and answer experience. We had a lady on here who had actually gone through a divorce, experienced crash and burn, and then her and her husband got back together to thrive and vibe. I mean, we could have had some good stuff on here. But then we've had some people who have really dealt with the realities of being able to fuel their children, their family, in private, and understanding the power of what's private and what is public, in the sense of what happens in private. Oh, it's going to show itself in public. I can promise you that. But now today, we got somebody who can talk about family for sure. Oh, let me just tell you, it's not that he can't. It's more so that he's going to talk to us about communication within the context of not just family, not just business, but communication in the context of how powerful it is for us to make sure that we deal with it the way we ought to. So, my man, Randy Lanning, listen, let me tell you about this guy. Let me tell you about this guy. My collar's kind of messed up. Y'all got to fix that. Let me tell you about Randy. So, Randy and I, we were in the semifinals for the Great American Speak Off, and we happened to be assigned to the same group of competitors. And the cool thing about how they set us up in our groups were we were competing against each other, but they made it to where we had to celebrate one another in some of the
Mm,
aspects that we were dealing with. But here's the thing, they didn't really force us. We had no desire to do otherwise. We were going
right.
to celebrate each other. We felt like, hey, you my brother, you my sister. Just because you in my group, everybody else
Yep.
was too, but you in my group, you really, really
Yep.
special.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so Randy and I, man, we hit it off, as well as a number of other people. We hit it off immediately and just began to, refresh each other, build each other, encourage each other,
Mm,
benefit from each other's value. And so much so, let me just tell you this. When I reached out to all the folks who are on this this mastermind experience days, he said, look, man, all you had to tell me was you're doing this, let's go. And I was like, I know, but you gotta create the experience for people. So Randy, he comes from Arizona, and man, he has a unique experience. He's certainly a communication expert. He's a powerful speaker. He's a learning and development professional for a major corporation. And when it comes down to it, some of y'all who've been following this, like, man, Leo's probably a great host and this and that and blah blah blah. This guy right here, he got me.
um,
This fella here, he knows how to ask the right questions, ask great questions in order to create some great value, which is why he's a communication expert. So, Randy, go ahead and kind of give us some introduction from your side, man, and then we'll jump into this mastermind conversation.
yeah. Well, first of all, Leo, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the invitation and the willingness to step out and host something like this. This is incredible. You are really trying to position people for success and tackling a topic that I believe the world is struggling with. We're struggling with. We've
Yeah.
all probably struggled with it at some point in time. So I appreciate you inviting me and allowing me to kind of step into the space. And so for those, my name is Randy Lanning. I am Director of Learning and Development inside of Fortune 50. Fortune, I think we're somewhere 60 at this point in time. We have 50 some thousand plus associates all over the globe, and I have the privilege and honor of working with teams of people inside of that organization that really help our organization achieve their goals and help people identify the
Yeah.
roadblocks that could be standing in the way and helping us overcome them. And with a level of uh, exposure or corporate you know corporate exposure on that plane, it does come with attacks and it does come with a struggle. So in my personal life, my wife Katie and I, we have three boys. My oldest is 10. I have an 8-year old, and then we have my youngest will be 7 here in a few weeks. And it's
Sweet.
crazy to think, Leo, when we started with this company, um, we were expecting him. We were still pregnant with him,
Wow, 7
and so
years.
yeah, so he has been from this position. He has kind of we're able to see, in physicality, the tenure of time I've been with this company. We can see it embodied in
Mm.
him, and it's wild,
You brought
but
the heat already, man.
I'm telling you, if you need a visual representation of the career, I can look at specifically within this company, I can look at him.
Wow.
So yeah. So that's a little bit about myself.
Man, we about to find out more about you because you about to give us
Mhm,
some gems and some gold
mhm,
bars. Man,
mhm,
as you were talking, there's two things that came to mind. Of course, there was something you said in our initial, man, I got something that's just like sitting on my eye, those little links and stuff, they be doing that. Yeah, man.
Hey, I hate that. I hate
Yeah,
that.
and it's like you see it, and you be like, man, what this? Okay. So
Yeah, I got you.
you were talking about in our pre challenge conversation that we had, kind of setting things up and getting our minds right. One of the things you said, this was in one of the reels, was it was two things that kind of connected for me. It was one talking about, listening to people with a very closed-minded view. You didn't say it exactly this way, but it was kind of like that. Listening to people where you're listening to them based on your presuppositions and what you're feeling, right?
Mhm,
Instead of listening to people based on what it is that they need, making sure your message is understood by them, right? And
Hmm.
then you said one of the issues though is that people, it's not that they're not listening, it's that they need to listen deeper, right?
Hmm.
And
Yes.
so when we did the IG live, you brought up some statistics. I was like, dude, send those to me. And when I went into those statistics, I listened deeper
Mm,
than what it is that they were saying. Okay. And when I say listen deeper, I mean from the standpoint that I'm listening from not just a practitioner of family life crashing and burning while business life is thriving and vibing, not just a practitioner of the person who's been very fortunate to have the solution to that, which is family business life mastery. I
mhm,
listen from the depth of the pain that
mm,
people are experiencing. First and foremost, I know you haven't, really followed all the content because of your schedule and all of that, but one of the main things I talked about in the trilogy of transformation, which was, that's the lunch and learn segments, was the first 3 days was talking about the three misleading beliefs that cause family life crashing and burning. And number one misleading belief, number one, the first one is believing you can achieve work life balance,
mm,
right? And so when I looked at this data listening for the misleading beliefs, listening for the accurate beliefs that are not really being dealt with, listening for the master keys that are being hungry for, that are not understood or clear. And so as we talked in that initial conversation, I was like, man, that's powerful. Talking about communication. And it
mhm,
dawned on me that we need to make sure that family life and business life communicate to each other, which in the accurate beliefs, we have now established the importance of creating focus, meaning you have to have the belief that focus is able to be created between the two. And when you have that true belief, there's no difficulty in understanding that there or believing that you can make fuel between the two and achieve flow between the two. So, like as we
mm,
talk about this, man,
mm,
you're the communication expert, right? Tell me what is the number one thing as to why not just we have difficulty communicating to each other or with each other or things communicating to each other, but why we have so many difficulties about what's communicated within ourselves before we communicate to each other. Come
mm.
on, brother.
Wow. So you're hitting on something here, and I think a lot of it we got to understand first of all the layer. I think that society is also pushing out. How many of us have been influenced by what we see on social media or a perception we see from a television show or a movie, or we adopt a persona that is manufactured and pushed out to us for
Mm,
us to see. We talk a lot about imposter syndrome. People,
mm,
it's out there, and a lot of people resonate with it. And they understand that because what they're feeling is some lack of integrity inside of them, and integrity meaning like who I think I am versus the
mm,
person I need to display and put out. Um, so when you add in now a layer of that work life balance, I think a lot of people look to adopt personas that they've potentially seen in other people or seen displayed through, again, some societal outlet, that now who I am, I need to mask this to try to achieve something. And I think that's where stress really is birthed, is you are putting on this narrative, this internal facade for an external audience that you are trying to display to them, that you understand you have it all together, when in all actuality it might be crumbling and failing inside. And I can think of times, Leo, where I've personally struggled with stuff like this. During the time, certainly pre-COVID, uh, my role existed where we were putting on a lot of live events, and I think throughout that time, several year, 4 or 5 year period of time, my travel was absolutely chaotic. And there was one stint where, for I believe it was 23 or 24 weeks in a row, I was gone for some segment of a week. then it would more often be like in every other week I was traveling again for some period of that week. Now, the reason communication is so vital in this is, as I mentioned earlier, we had my wife during that time, bless her heart. She's a champion. She has more crowns in heaven than I could imagine, right? I'm waiting for her. She she was holding down the fort, and she was raising these kids and when, in my absence. Now, how do I maintain a fatherly presence and look after my home while also trying to be that provider and be that proactive person? And so I've experienced something like that, Leo. I think a lot of people transparently have probably struggled with that facade of who I should be, who I think I could be or need to be or want to be versus maybe who I feel like I truly am.
Mm. Man, so I, I I hadn't been doing this with anybody else, but I had to take some notes with you because I was like, oh no, I don't need to forget this.
Mm,
So three things that I think correspond to what you were saying, and I think it's going to take us deeper. One, you said an idea manufactured.
mm,
One of the things I talked about in regard to the misleading beliefs, especially work-life balance, I was like, where did that come from? Like
mm,
that is constructed without appropriate regard for what our lives really are. And I get it that somebody's saying life is family and work is business, right? But
mhm,
that's not really what's intended in that. It's really because you got to understand, you got to look at how I set it up on purpose. It's
mhm,
family life. I might drop the
mhm,
life sometimes and say family, but it's family life and business life because there needs to be the understanding that both of them are an aspect of life.
yes,
But
mhm,
then when we put them together, it's family business life, meaning there's this connection of union and this connection of merging and integrating because they are both the context of life, right?
mhm, mhm.
So who manufactured the other one? Right?
Right,
That's
right.
what that so when you said manufactured, I was like, okay, he hit it. Then he said
Mm,
that lack of integrity, that lack of integrity in am I being who I'm really supposed to be? Hmm. I'm like, okay. Then you said, here it is, you gone those stints of 24 weeks, or straight you were traveling, and each week you were gone, and then you just every other week. And it's like, how can I be present? Now, watch
yeah.
this. The reason I bring that up is because all three of those really are the core of imposter syndrome. An
Mm,
idea that is not truly predictably productive, then the thought processes that begin to follow from that then position you to not be able to benefit from having a presence of mind while you don't have a presence of body.
wow.
See, watch
Mm,
this, and I'm gonna throw you back. I'm gonna throw you back in there.
mhm, mhm.
This is really what like, for example, let me take a moment to say, okay, if I was coaching you, I'd be like, okay, Larry, I mean Randy, man, I must be excited about having a conversation with Larry later on. Because we're gonna be on today. I must be excited.
Love it.
So I'd be like, Randy, man, that was powerful. Let me ask you this
Mm,
question. Have you ever heard that it's possible to be present while not being present, but also to be present and not be present? Simply because there is a deeper look at Larry. He said, I'm excited too.
I love
There's
it.
a deeper piece of this whole thing, Randy. And the truth is, starting with this idea of manufactured, we've lost the value of presence of mind over presence of body.
Mm,
Listen,
wow.
man, I don't usually go this way, but think about this. How many people are so quick to say God doesn't exist because we don't see him,
Mm,
but we see everything about him and his mind is present, whether his physical presence is present. Come on, man.
mm,
So,
wow.
so you think he's a absentee father because he's not physically here?
Wow.
No,
That's good.
We can be present even while physically not being present because it's a presence of mind, but it starts with what are you thinking? This is why I asked that question about the communication piece between folks, but what about that thing inside of us, man?
Yep.
So talk about that.
So I think we all have that internal dialogue, right?
Mm,
And when I think of communication, that is a central portion of it. You know, you brought up the word, right? You brought up God. The Bible says, "Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks."
mm.
Right, and so what's in here is eventually going to leak out at some point. What's internal for me, it's going to come out, right? And I think if we look at the communication from a broad spectrum, before I'm ever speaking to an audience, I'm speaking to myself, right?
Okay.
I'm looking at, and another great, we talked about the Bible, another great philosopher of our time, Michael Jackson once said, "I'm starting with the man in the mirror." Right? Okay, I got
Come
lightening
on.
up for people a little bit. No, but the principle. I'm starting with the person in the mirror. So when we think about communication, the person you are looking for first and foremost in that mirror, how are you speaking and communicating to yourself? Because when I referenced my travel there during those periods of time, I had to be very mindful of, am I an absentee father? Am I, that parent guilt that I think we all have the temptation of struggling with. I'm not doing enough. Or am I? What more could I be doing? Am I hurting? Am I helping it? No, I'm trying to provide a life for my family. Like that internal pull and dialogue, if you're not careful, can absolutely get out of control. But you have to stay grounded in the fact of, I'm trying to make the most of the time, certainly that I have in that moment, but I'm also trying to create a life. And this, I believe, is where you get to family and business life mastery.
Mm-hmm.
We point it towards this direction. I am trying to create a long term, sustainable, transformational life for my children, for my future. And so that hunter gatherer, that provider for your family, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So I'm not being absent. I'm actually investing in their future, in their life, by trying to create something sustainable that'll outlast myself, that will last in generations for them. But I think it starts with legitimate clarity and authenticity when it comes to communication internally.
Man, you said a mouthful on that, and you answered it powerfully. Let me, because one of the things I want to do, I'm gonna bring this comment back up. We don't have to respond to the comments, y'all. We like for y'all to see if you spy it in, because remember, we have the conversation, y'all just get to watch. But these are some questions I want you to tackle, and I'm gonna leave them up here just for a moment. So
Mhm.
here's what you said, which corresponds to even taking these questions deeper. What you said was, first you started with the heart, then you talked
Mhm.
about looking at yourself in the mirror, meaning evaluating. So you got to look at your thought storage, then you have to look at
Mhm.
the image connected with the thought storage, and how you even know what your thought storage has and what mirror to look into as you listen to what you're saying, which tells you what you're thinking, what you're believing, what you're feeling, so that you can determine if the thought process is truly consistent with the mastery of family business life, right? And
Mhm.
so one of the things you said was, man, I don't know if people caught it if they were listening. You said, man, you struggle with the guilt and this and that, and then towards the end of what you said, there was this light and bright to it, where it was like, well, I had to think about it from the perspective that, man, I'm really trying to leave an inheritance for them. That's a perspective. That's a truth.
Mhm.
That's a value point. That's a focus, right? That's a
Mhm.
relational reality. That is a flow perspective. That is a fuel
Mhm.
perspective. That's the accurate beliefs, by the way. Yeah,
I love it.
you're flowing, you're fueling, and you're focusing. It's like, yeah. And so now it's like, if this is the work, then they need to know, just as well as I need to know, communication, first to myself, but then to them, that this is to put them on a trajectory for, right? Put them on a trajectory to have the work ethic demonstrated, the commitment demonstrated, the resources, accessed and produced and procured, right? All of those different things. And so then at this point, you've just communicated this is bigger than just I'm gone. It's why am I gone? Right.
Mhm,
This is
mhm,
what I was talking about, in the lunch and learn yesterday. I was like, too many CEOs, business owners, and executives are focusing on how much time they are spending in business life and then saying, well, maybe if I'd have spent more time with my. No, it's about intentional time. Like, in order,
mhm,
see, let me say this to everybody who's listening, and say this to us and everybody. We've got to stop. This is why balance is such a problem, because you can't put equal amounts of time, energy, and effort. But you're going to hear this probably for the first time ever. You're going to have to put time, energy, and effort at greater proportions into business, is because business cannot operate on its own. It needs a life
mm,
source to give it life. Family can operate with small amounts of perspective that provide this, very phenomenal sense of energy and propelling in ways that business cannot. You see, so that's why you will never achieve balance. You got to achieve flow, because family does not need the same amount of time, energy, and effort. It truly does need a quality of time, intentionally engaged, so that there can be an awareness of why I'm getting out of here. Okay, let's get to Lynn question. All right. I didn't hit my light and everything, turned it off. Boy, Leo is, man, he is
fired up.
Randy.
I'm here for it.
Randy, you didn't mess me up today. You messing up the studio setup. Oh, God goodness. Okay, so Linan says, and she got another question. So we're gonna come to the second question. You gonna get your questions from the people today.
I love it.
All right.
I'm here for it.
So we're gonna tackle this in spurts. So she starts out, she says, how many of us do that? As far as, be physically present but not mentally present in the conversation or experience. Like, talk about that, especially from your side of you having to really work with a lot of different, leaders, different managers, operational level people. Like, how much do you deal with this? And even how much do you see it where people kind of having that teeter with family life and business life while you're dealing with the learning development aspects of the business?
Mhm. So, when I talk about guilt, I think that's something, yes, parents, that parent guilt in corporations, there's employee guilt, there's leader guilt, there's all of these things. And that could be rooted in a lot of different perceptions that people have. I think the pandemic really highlighted a lot of this for us, where now you're working in a home office and, a toddler's charging in the door. They don't know boundaries, they don't understand. But I think, and I'm going to come back to that, I think
Mm,
they inherently have a principle that they understand that I think is very transformational for us to apply. Um, those situations really highlighted a lot of this, that we, for many people, are trying to stand in two places. They're trying
mm,
to stand in that balance, and they're trying to figure out where they think of it like a side of a coin. We just watched the NFL game, the coin toss. Which side is it going to land? Do I get to be my business persona, or am I going to be my family, my life persona outside of, I get
yeah.
to take that hat off. I get to take my customer service voice off, and now I can be my true authentic self. Well, it's not a coin that it lands on, because that's a terrible analogy, because then one side is up, one side is down, and you never really get to choose.
Which is why
What
balance is just terrible.
exactly. What I tried to stay, because that's exhausting. Like, that is so
Come
exhausting.
on, brother. Talk about
I
it.
try to stay grounded in is, we just did, I think it was 5 years ago, 5 year anniversary, 5 or 6 years ago. I was keynoting at one of these events, and it happened to be it was about an hour drive. And my wife and my three boys were able to come and attend. And at the time, my youngest, he was a year or two old, if that, was able to come and attend. And one of my friends within the organization, she had to take the kids into one of the other conference rooms, and they were running, doing laps, because they're kids. They didn't want to sit there. But as people got to meet my wife, as they got to interact with us, one of the biggest compliments I felt like I ever received was people coming up and saying, you know, I see how you're interacting, you're talking with your wife, and she got to spend the afternoon with us. She got to go out to eat with us. We did a big, celebration dinner thing with the whole conference and event. Everybody was able to attend. And for the days and weeks following, people were like, there was no change in yourself. There was no shift of like, I'm corporate person. Oh, now here's my family. Here's my wife. They were like, you were the same person. And I could tell for
Mm,
a lot of people that was very different. Now I take that as a big compliment because to me it said I didn't feel like I had to change my hats. I didn't have to, I put this persona off and now I have adopted this corporate leader type of persona. Now, I mentioned a second ago about, the pandemic that we've all, everybody had their unique experience living through and working from home for some periods of time and kids charging in. I think it's because at the internal that toddler, that child, they know you as loving and nurturing. They don't know that person as somebody different,
yeah.
right? So then they are leading from that place of relation that this is who I know, so they're not going to be bothered if I come charging in because I know they can solve my need, they can meet my need, they can calm me, they can help me find a solution. But I have access to them uninhibited because of the relationship I have with them.
Yeah, it's
So
powerful, man.
if you're looking to have true family business life mastery, yes, you need to look at your internal communication, but also understand your relationships that you have could potentially be something that could be defunct or out of sorts or out of alignment because you are playing a certain role that you are not meant to play in a relationship.
Mm.
Right, and I'm not talking about your family and your kids, somebody's gonna walk away, Leo, and say, that's right, these kids." No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in the business life. You have you have an assignment with your family, with your children, and with your spouse in those relationships, and you need to play that role. I believe that's foremost important. But now when you carry that into and you see those things blend, how much of it are you actually having to fabricate and put on, and then what is making you do that, that's preventing you from being your most authentic self? That's where I think we could really start, that thought process and how you kind of navigate through that.
So you touched on it. So then how much more can we enjoy
Mhm.
each other in our lives when we are really fully present in every situation? And you already summed it up because you the perfect picture was I spoke, I engaged with these people, and then they saw me speak to my wife and engage with her in the same way that I spoke and engaged with them. I mean, it wasn't speaking
Mhm.
from the stage to her. I
Mhm.
mean, unless
Mhm.
she was sitting in the audience, but it was like, this is just who Randy is, right? And in this sense, you think about this as you were talking. This made me think about Carl yesterday. We were talking about he's got 5 children, and Carl and I. So what he does. This is cool. His wife has like 3 days off a month, because they're a homeschool family. So
Mhm.
she has like 3 days where she pretty much kind of goes away, maybe go hangs out with her mom or sister or whatever, right? She's off, and it's just Carl and 5, right? And Carl, one time, a couple times actually, but one time in particular, he came out to hang with us, my wife, my 2 daughters, and we went to the park. And I was like, these 5 children are on point with this one
Mhm.
man. You know why? And I already knew why. I just wanted everybody else who was listening to kind of hear it.
Mhm.
What's done in private will show
Mhm.
up in public. And what you're
Mhm.
saying is the communication in private is no different in public, because what's in your heart about communication, what's in your heart towards your wife in communication and your children, is always showing up in public, because that's just who y'all are. So you
Mhm.
you already answered the second part. Let's go to this other question. She's not really asking the question. She's kind of like doing an introspection, but I think that this would be valuable to tackle it at the same time. So she's like, question to ask ourselves. This is one of the reasons she was
Mhm.
a mastermind and a VIP Q&A experience. Right? she get down in it. She says, is your thought process consistent with what's needed for family and business life mastery? Like, talk
Mhm.
about the communication piece. Like, I keep coming back to the communication piece. And
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
y'all know Leo's a Bible guy. Y'all, if y'all not sure, y'all gonna find out. I love me some Bible, the Bible stories, the Bible perspective,
Mhm.
Bible theory. I love it. But watch this. The Tower of Babel God acknowledged. So let me set it up for you because I'm gonna throw this ball to you, brother. You go enjoy
Mhm,
it. God set up a process for us, right? The process of life. So I'm gonna run through something real quick. Myron Golden talks about this, the platform of life that God made, which was time, space, and matter. And then he created the parameters for us, and that's be, do, have. And then out of be, do, have, he created the process for us to be, do, and have, for us to operate within the context of the platform. And that is imagination, communication, unification, and implementation. Now, here's what's
mhm,
interesting: the thing that connects all of those is communication.
mhm,
So much and
mhm,
so we see it illustrated that God comes down and watches the Tower of Babel be created, right? And he says, these people are one, unification. And everything that they think to do, imagination, will get done,
mhm,
implementation, as they are continuously one in communication. How do we know he said one in communication? He said, let us go down and confuse their language
mhm,
so
mhm.
that they cannot communicate to each other. Because if they do, they're going to continue what they're doing. He
Yep.
disrupts the communication, and now their imaginations cannot be unified, their efforts cannot be
Mhm.
unified, their implementation cannot be unified. So, the reason I asked this with regard to this thought process that Linan just provided of, is your thought process consistent with what's needed for family and business life mastery, is a question we need to ask ourselves. How critical is it from what you've communicated to people? How critical is communication in the context of that?
That's so good. So I love the analogy and the story. So I want to highlight one thing within that. So in the question that said what's needed for family and business life, I think when we start to head towards what am I communicating, what's needed, is it consistent? Foundational for any level of communication is, and illustrated through that story at the Tower of Babel as well, is understanding. Is
Mm,
understanding. Listening, it's so vital, it's so important because listening helps me understand. So a lot of us listen, many of us at times have probably tried to listen with the intent to respond. Leo's talking, I'm waiting for my turn. I'm waiting for now his turn, and or we're in a conversation, we're in a meeting, or with a spouse. It doesn't matter. I'm just waiting for my moment, my time to shine, my time to speak.
mm,
Right. So my mind is wrapped up not in what the other person is saying or contributing to the dialogue, but my mind is wrapped up in a place of self. It's
mm,
wrapped up in what am I going to say next? What am I going to speak next? No, when you think of communication, the central figure of communication really to me boils down to how well do I understand?
mm,
How well do I actually understand the dialogue? How well do I understand what the other person's trying to convey or what they might need from me in this moment? Because my level of which I am capable of understanding will be equal then to the level that I can communicate
mm,
effectively to the other person. So it starts with understanding. And the way I understand greater is I listen more effectively. I listen and try to engage and understand in a different way. That's where I can truthfully be able to help. Now, if I do these things well, then I will be able to communicate in an authentic way because I have done my portion. That's probably most important is engaging and connecting with the person. There's a book called Getting to Yes and it's the art of business improv. Now, I don't know if anyone in the audience or Leo, if everyone's familiar with improv. I personally don't do improv because that's sometimes where people think I'm going with this. But I grew up watching shows like Saturday Night Live, or even as a kid, like stuff like that that might be um, less scripted. There's scripting, but when it comes to the live component, sometimes things go off the rails, right? And that lends itself more towards improv, and it's the ability to be engaged in the moment and then comfortable enough in the moment and the fluidity of what could be happening that I can move seamlessly and connected throughout the theme or the topic. So
mm,
when I apply that to communication, the TV shows that are on, out there that are recorded, they're very scripted. An actor has lines and they play their lines. You almost don't need to really know what the other person is saying. You just need the cue for what they're saying so you can speak your line. And
Come
then
on,
they listen
man.
for the cue and they speak their line. And that's how a lot of people operate with communication, where
Ooh.
true, authentic communication, if you understand and you're trying to listen, you're connected, you're not waiting for a scripted moment to repeat your segmented lines. What you're trying to do
Mm.
is be so connected and grounded in this space and on the topic that I'm engaged, I am listening to this person, and what I'm going to deliver is going to add value, but it's going to require me to be grounded and authentic in that space. So that's, I think, how you can really get to authentic communication is clarity in the moment, connectedness, understanding, and the results will allow you to have a more authentic, more trust centered, respect focused level of communication. So that there's a lot in there to that, but I think that improv, if you look at it from that layer, is it's not scripted, but instead I'm trying to just focus in on listening to what the other person is saying so I can understand it.
Man, you I said, who's ever listening, I told you it was gonna be gems and gold bars. I was like, oh my goodness. Man, so let me share this real quick as I transition you into talking about what you've already talked about. But this was one of the things that in our pre-challenge conversation you said you really wanted to like hone in on. So I'm gonna bring you to it. I remember this was about I said this, man. If anybody knows what family life crashing and burning while business life is thriving and vibing, it's me. I mean, I had some experiences, many of you know, but don't know because you probably heard me in one of the segments. My wife asked for a divorce back in 2012, right? And let me tell you why we did not even move forward with looking into the details. It was because of communication. And in that moment, there was the seeking to understand. How that looked was I said, "Hey, let's sit down. You talk. You tell me what you're thinking. I'm going to listen and I'm not going to say anything until you're done." That was like the first time in my life I did that, right? But just a few years prior to that, Randy, I read this article entitled "The Voices in Your Head."
Mm,
No, watch this. I thought it was talking about the voices of other people that was clouding your thoughts and keeping you from, focusing on things that you need to focus on. I was like eager to get into it just because of the way it
mhm,
sounds. I get into
mhm,
it. Guess what he's talking about? The difference between passive listening and active listening, which is what you've been
mhm,
talking about. Like
mhm,
listening
mhm,
to understand rather than listening to jump in and communicate. I love how you said it, listening with intent to respond rather
mhm,
than listening to understand, and then waiting for my time to shine and speak, just so wrapped up in self. Man, I had no clue how selfish I was, right? I
mhm,
had no clue how I was a great listener for Leo, not a
mhm,
great listener for others. And what you're saying to us is that's not authentic communication, because communication is not one sided, but you're
mhm,
listening. And so, because you're listening, you think you're engaging in communication and even conversation, but you're not. So, talk about
mhm,
that deeper layer of authentic communication. Like, what is it? Why is it important for me, for you, for anybody when dealing with, especially mastery being achieved between family life and business life? Why is
mhm.
authentic communication so vital?
So I think it comes down to a couple things. Number one, I'll always teach connect before you correct.
Mm,
So if you're in a coaching situation, if you're in a leadership situation, you're a parent, you're a whatever, you have to connect before you can actually correct something. How well am I connected to the thing I'm actually trying to connect? How well am I connected to the thing I'm actually trying to influence? But then connect before you communicate, I think, are two just foundational principles: correction or just general communication. if I strive to put on the hat of I just want to connect, I want to understand what's going on. And that's, I think, what was so powerful about the Speak Off event. I told my wife after day one, I was reflecting on some of the event and I was like, I don't know if I did well here. I don't know about this. I don't know about that. I was like, but if all I came to this event for was just to be connected to people like Leo, like others, like the friends that we would have made, then I've walked away with my cup already full because I walked in with the intention just to connect, just to
Yeah,
understand. And now connection, I think, starts with genuinely asking, excuse me, asking sincere questions, trying to get information, I think, from the people. And I don't mean that in a nefarious way, as much as you're just genuinely interested in the other people, asking questions that allow the person to give further clarity or insight about themselves or about their topic, I think, or about the situation. That allows me to first and foremost connect. Now, if I'm in a coaching situation, I need to correct it. Well, I really have to do my homework to make sure I am plugged in, because we don't want to look foolish and try to give coaching or advice on something we are not qualified to speak on because we've not taken the time to actually connect to it. So I think asking questions is a vital portion of being a great communicator. You have to be willing to ask some good quality open-ended questions that will allow the space for learning, because that's really what we're trying to get into, is learning from the person, from the moment in the environment, which will then go back to improv. I may not know where the conversation is going to go. I may not know what all the answers are. I may not have my talking points or my cheat sheet in front of me, but if I'm truly connected in the moment and I'm engaged with the topic, I've done my research, there is nothing that's off topic that I won't be able to flow in and out of with the conversation, because I'm grounded in the moment with another person, as opposed to trying to get back to my agenda to cover my points. Do you know what I mean by that?
absolutely, man. Like I love these, man. See, we could have called this an interview, but that's why it was a mastermind experience and not an
Hmm.
interview, because of what we're experiencing. Like I get the point of interviews, but I
Hmm.
like the mindfulness. All right, because that's really what you're talking about. Authentic communication is genuinely concerned about the value to be given, not the
Hmm.
value to be received. And the
Hmm.
mastermind perspective is completely focused on the value to be given, the value to be communicated, the value to be executed, right? And so when it comes down to it, your your 2 points with regard to authentic communication, like I think this is important to communicate it this way. Authentic communication is laced with connection,
Hmm.
and connection before correction, and
Hmm.
connection before communication. Now watch this, dude. You mentioned the speak off. I was like, oh, he on the vein, because as you were talking, I was like, man, I gotta share this takeaway. I hope that is cool, as far
Hmm.
as it'll flow well. And you just set it up like straight up alley hoop. So you made it to the top 30. I didn't.
Hmm.
All right. And so they had a different experience set up for us who were in the not top 30. Okay.
Hmm.
And one of those experiences was, Grant came out and, shared some things with us. They had a couple folks, a few people provide some content and training. Not everybody participated in 10x stages. So they positioned a lot of them to get some of that content so that they can take it away and know that there was great value in this moment, of their experience. Right. And while I was sitting there, man, there was like so many value bombs dropped. There was this aspect of I want to really gain so much. And the first thing that really triggered me was one, when the first person began to talk, she began to talk about the importance of having clarity. And when she said that, like just a few weeks prior, when I was at 10x stages, I had really became very clear about my assignment, about, the problem I solve and who I serve. And here it is. I acquiesced to what I did at the first level, the preliminary level of the speak off, rather than coming out of my clarity that I now had the power to walk in. So every bit of content that I delivered was inconsistent with my clarity, right?
Wow.
And so I was
Wow.
out here communicating, but I had not connect because I was not even connected to myself,
Wow. Wow. Wow.
right? So then Grant comes out and he says, if this hurt, you need to pay attention to that because it tells you something about yourself. I say, ooh,
That's
if
good.
it hurts that you didn't get picked and you felt like you should have got picked, you need to look at that.
Mm,
Connect, right? Connect with who?
hmm
Connect with your heart.
hmm
All right.
Yeah.
Connect with what's there, right? But then we get in and we're sitting in the speak off for to see who's going to be in the top 3, ended up being the top 4. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to all the feedback that they're giving the people who are competing and all that kind of stuff. I was like, man, this was not just a competition. This was a working competition. Like this was a
hmm
workshop competition. Like we
Yeah.
had so many opportunities. I was like, man, I think aside from travel and all that kind of stuff, man, that was like the cheapest $10,000, $20,000 conference that I had ever, and didn't pay a
hmm
dime as it pertains to the 20,000, right? Anyway, that's another
Yeah.
thing. So
You're spot
after
on.
all of it, I get these takeaways, and it was like the aha of everything. There's a difference in speaking to be heard. I know what it is. I just want to make sure I stay on point with it. There's a difference in speaking to be heard and in speaking to provide benefit. Sounds like
Hmm
authentic communication, right?
Yep.
There's a
Yep.
difference in speaking to communicate and in speaking to connect.
hmm
Okay.
Yeah.
Then
hmm
there's a difference in speaking to impress and in speaking to impact.
Mm, that's
Here's
still
what's
good.
interesting. Only when we speak to provide benefit, to connect, and to impact is it certain that we can be heard, we can communicate, and we can impress. Brother, talk about that takeaway and the power of it resonating with authentic communication.
Wow. First of all, you just mic dropped right there. Oh my gosh. Uh, that I'm just sitting here listening. I'm a participant. I'm listening to this. Oh my gosh. You know, I think if you really want to make an impact in the world does not need in this moment more people who are just, Facebook, you have a wall and you're putting your content out on the wall. And if people choose to, they can go to your wall and see that. I don't know that the world needs more billboard communicators,
Mm,
meaning meaning I'm just putting my stuff out there. I think if people are truly billboard is an effective means to communicate, so I'm not discrediting that. It serves a purpose. What I'm trying to say is that is focused on my message, putting it out there, not focusing on how does my message serve people and how do I connect to those people to let them know here's this thing that I need to impart, here's this thing that I need to give. um, I read
mm,
somewhere a few weeks ago, and it was a stat. I honestly think it was a meme, but I'm going to apply it in a different way. And it said something like, if there's 8 billion some people on the planet, and if 99% of those people find you unattractive, that 1%, I should have looked it up, but this is improv, so I don't have the notes in front of me.
gotcha.
I don't know what the number is, but we're talking millions of people would be in that 1% that would find you attractive. So yes, that's encouragement. Maybe somebody watching and listening and they're struggling in their dating life. Hey, if 99% of the world doesn't find you attractive, that 1%, that's a huge category. You got to find that audience. That's not what we're talking about, though, is dating. If I were to take that and apply that to 99% of the people in the world don't need your message.
Mm,
Okay. If 1% of the world does,
80 million.
that is a huge, thank you, huge number. 80 million people on this planet still need what you have to say. So instead of saying, I'm just going to blast message out there, let me flip that and let me lead with authenticity and try to find an audience that this resonates with, that connects with, and let me deliver that to them in a way that feels personal and personalized to them. Not the billboard, but instead focused in on what they're trying to accomplish and what they're looking for. That's where I think we find true genuine impact and transformation. Is I've identified where that person is at, what they want or they need. I have something that resonates with them, and I'm delivering that message towards them. I think that's where this all kind of comes together.
Man, that's awesome. Listen, I want to talk longer, and I know you do too. But then
Mm,
we got other stuff to do as well, and other people got
right,
stuff to do.
right.
But man, and in giving us some last words, and even sharing any offers, what is it that communication has done for you?
Mhm,
And like, let me back up before I ask it that way. I know you have been pursuing and really, committed to family business life mastery. It may not have been the
mhm,
phrase you used, but you have been really very committed to that. One way that it's very evident is the intentionality of the names of your children, right?
mhm,
The very prayerfulness about giving them
mhm,
names consistent with the trajectory of their lives, right?
mhm, mhm,
So, what is it that puts you in the position to not only be a communications expert from a professional side, but like really leverage those skill sets and see how valuable they are in your family life, but then really see that they get the greatest polishing in your family life for you to become even more of a master of
mhm.
family life and business life?
You know, I one of the things we really, my wife and I, we too homeschool, and all three of our boys. And one of the things we constantly try to pour into them is the value of communication. Everything in this world is coming down to communication at this point in time. We could elevate ourselves out of this conversation and look around the world events, world leaders, global leaders not communicating or communicating poorly, and how that is escalating things on our planet. Everything
Yeah.
comes down to communication. Whether it's on a platform with a microphone and me speaking out to people, or it's me in a team meeting and we're sitting in a circle, everything comes down to communication. So my ability to communicate well and fluently to the right audience and speak around the topic in an educated way, in a connected way, will equally relate to my level of success.
Yeah.
And so, what I try to help right now is people in that space who want to get better with public speaking. They say, I just talked with a business owner a couple of weeks ago, and they said, "Man, I am terrified. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do all of these things." Running a million dollar, multi-million dollar business, and say, when I get up in front of my people, I freeze, I tense up, I don't know what to
Yeah.
do. My process is messed up. I take my notes up, I go off script, I'm all over the place. I find more people struggle in that space. And so again, there's a quote out there and it says, if you listen to your audience, they will tell you what they need from you.
Hmm.
The thing I keep getting people reaching out to me on is they've seen me on stage or they've seen me through the years in different environments and say, what we need is, how do we overcome that fear of public speaking, or that lack of clarity around public speaking, that lack of teaching around it? Because you can read a book, you can watch a YouTube video, you can fill in whatever blank, but it's not the same as getting hands-on practical advice. It's not the same as getting that one, maybe one-on-one attention or group attention specifically focused around the skill set. If you can impact and grow that one area, everything, and I mean it, everything, you'll increase your productivity, you'll
Yeah.
establish greater trust and respect among your teams, you'll be able to understand and resolve conflicts better, you'll be able to establish healthy boundaries in whatever area that means. All comes down to our ability to communicate. And so that's the lane I'm really being drawn to help people in, is just that specific area. And then we're launching an event here, and it is going to be based here in Arizona,
Okay.
but we are going to look at a virtual aspect as well. So look, uh, I don't want to harbor on that too much. I want to invest in these people. If people are interested in learning more about it, they can certainly navigate and find their way to me. And I would love to help, continuing just, again, to pour
How can
into
they
this
find
awesome
you, man?
audience you got. Primarily Instagram is one of the biggest vehicles I have right now.
Yep.
It's just
Yep.
at Randy Lanning. Website was supposed to be done in January, but how many of us understand delays? So currently it's just a landing page. If you look at randylanning.com, there's that. Or here, you can text me, cell number 619-609-9536. That's a great way to reach out and connect with me as well, and I'll be responsive there as best and as quickly as I can. But those are all some ways to connect with us, to learn more about what we've got going on, and would
Absolutely,
probably
man.
be the best outlet.
Listen, one of the ways that you can also connect with Randy is the community, the Family Business
Mhm.
Life Mastery community. He's going to be a regular presence. He's also going to be one of those people whose content is being provided to us to provide to you all. And the reason I'm mentioning this is I said it and I said, and I'll say it and I'll say it. You can take everything we've gotten and you will make leaps. The difference is you may not make quantum leaps because quantum leaps come from being able to leverage the learning, the growth, the experiences of others. So make sure to connect with Randy on IG. Again, at Randy Lanning is his IG handle, his website, randylanning.com, his phone number, which he gave to you. You can go back and check out this video to get that and rewind it once you get the on demand. But I'll tell you another way to do that is to join the community. And you can do that by going to team3l.com, FBLM community, and certainly you're going to get some great stuff. I mean, you're going to connect with Randy, all of the different speakers, the guests on the mastermind experience, but also you're going to have the opportunity to connect with a pretty powerful leadership tool from the awareness elevation team. So we got a lot of value that's set for you
Mhm.
guys, and this is just the beginning because we want you all to achieve at the highest level, high performance oriented experience of family business life mastery. Randy, man, this was impactful. Any very last words, so longs and everything else?
Hey, I just want to again reiterate how important and appreciative I am for you allowing me to come on and share on this space. You're an incredible person, incredible leader, and I'm so grateful that again our paths have crossed. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad you were here, man. I was over here just so man, we gonna let the live folks go, and you and I chat real briefly before you go. But
Mm,
you
yeah.
guys take all of this goodness, get ready for the 12:30 lunch and learn. We're gonna be talking about the first master key to achieving family business life mastery. So this is going to be absolutely phenomenal, exciting. Plus, we're going to have a VIP experience, Q&A experience with Larry Rollison at 1:30 after that. So y'all, we got a packed day. It's going to be exciting. Come and join us or check out the on demand. Y'all be great. You hear me now?